All right, I think we're live. Let me just check on YouTube, see what's going on. This is the first time I've tried using this software to go live, so I have no idea. One moment. YouTube, come on, search, see how we're doing. All right. We are live. Whoa. That's awesome. Let's stop that. Cool. So, hello. Welcome. Okay. Welcome to the first live stream for porting Gitflow to Golang. Doing it live. This is our first live stream. So, first of many is the plan. So what are we going to be doing? First of all, let's do some introductions. I want to say hello from here in Wales, home of beautiful mountains, and of course, the mighty Welsh dragon. And as you can tell from my accent, I'm anything but Welsh. I'm a Yorkshireman. But I've been in Wales now 20 years. Christ, how the time flies. And it certainly feels like home to me today. So we do have a viewer according to the streaming software. So please say hello. I'm hopeful that if you say hello, we'll actually see a message in the comments. So please tell me, where are you from? It's always that awkward thing, isn't it, when you start with a very small audience. Right. Well, if you're watching this on catch up, please do leave us a message in the comments below and tell us where you've watched this from. Let's get on with things. So, let me start by explaining what this live stream's about. I think that's a good place to start. I've got some old code that I need to modernize. It's not quite old enough to run on punch card and punch tape. Those were the days. I am old enough to have learned how to do that. But it certainly is a few years old now, and it needs modernizing. And it's this code here. It's the Gitflow extension, which is currently up on DataSift's GitHub. And it's originally forked from Vincent Dreisen. Excuse me, Vincent, if I got your pronunciation wrong. From his code, and I've been maintaining it for quite a few years now. But as you'll see for yourself on I'll put up on GitHub, it's written almost entirely in shell script, and that causes us a bit of a problem. For those who aren't aware, there we go. There's Vincent's original post back in 2010. About Gitflow, and he's added a note of reflection on top. Do recommend you go and read that at some point. But what he did was he come up with a way of using the different branches in Git to scale development very nicely. And he also wrote the first version, and I think he maintained it for like 2 or 3 years, of a Git extension to make all this really easy to do. And that is what we know as the Gitflow extension. And the whole point of this live stream is to take that Gitflow extension and make it more portable by rewriting it in Go. That's what I'm here to do. Now, this isn't my full-time job. I'm doing this in my own time on the evenings. So I'm going to be chipping away at this bit by bit each week until it's done. And since I'm going to be here every Monday evening working on it anyway, I thought, why not? Why not share the process? Why not sit down and show people how I go about doing this, how I make this happen? I'm an industry veteran. I've been doing this for a long time. And I'm hoping there's an audience out there for this who'll find this educational. People who are looking to level up, as the phrase is, or people just curious to see how other people do it. That's what I'm hoping for. So tonight's agenda. First of all, I want to test everything, make sure we're all happy with everything. Then we're going to go through my development process. And we're going to start from the beginning by actually working out exactly what the new program has to do. And I call that what does success look like. From there, we're going to put together an initial plan of how to tackle this. And then, depending on how time goes, we'll either do some R&D during the live stream, or I'll go and take away some R&D to do before the next live stream Monday night next week. Okay, how are we doing for viewers? Oh, we've got one viewer at the minute. Do say hello, whoever you are. Don't be shy. I'm just pulling up YouTube. It's going to there we go, YouTubeception. Always does that. Right. Let's get back to where were we? One moment. There we go. Right. Okay. Oh, got 2 viewers now. Hello, viewer number 2. So, first of all, is the sound all right? If you're watching the live stream, if you can leave me a comment, letting me know whether or not there's any audio problems. Or let me know whether the audio is okay, in fact. My MacBook Pro, which is what I'm streaming from, the fans are going quite a bit, so let's switch cameras. Hello. Yes, the fans are going quite a bit on my MacBook Pro, so I hope that that's not being picked up too much by the microphone. Unfortunately, I've no way of knowing here in the room. How are we doing? 3 viewers. Hello. 2 viewers. Oh, someone disappeared. See, I should have stuck with the slides. Obviously, I put them off. Right. 1 viewer. Okay. Not to worry then. I'm going to carry on and hope it's all okay. I am recording this, so I'll be able to upload it later. Let's go back to the slides then. So, I'm going to start by walking you through my process from start to end of how I'm going to go about building this app. And I don't want for a moment to pretend this is the one true process that everyone should follow every time. This is my go-to for this kind of work. If I was doing different work, I would probably be doing things a bit differently. But for creating a tool, especially where it's based on an existing piece of code, this is how I go about it. And more than anything else, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand where I'm trying to get to with this project. That's what I'm trying to do. And in particular, at this kind of stage, I'm after two things. I'm trying to find all the assumptions and as many design constraints as I can, because these things eat up a lot of time if you get them wrong up front. So just to make sure we've all got a common understanding, here's what I think of an assumption. It's often a requirement or an expectation or something that's a given from one person's experience, especially if they're used to working in a field. But it's something that's not been explicitly stated. Oh, hello Rob, thank you for letting me know the sound is good. Thank you very much. So an assumption is an expectation that one person has, but the other people don't know because it hasn't been explicitly teased out and written down. That's an assumption. And a design constraint. These are our boundaries. These are limitations, restrictions, whatever phrase you want to use, that we have to respect and we have to take into account of with our design and our approach, and we can't go beyond them. That's all design constraints are. And those are the two things I'm after. Now, depending on what projects you've done, people may have asked you, what does done look like? And I don't use that question. In my experience, you ask someone what done's look like, and something's never done. There's always more things they want. But if you change the question and ask them what does success look like, you change it from a technical question, if you like, that produces a laundry list. You change it into an emotive question that produces feelings. People find that a lot easier to answer. So that's why I like to ask, what does success look like? And for this project, I'm going to try something that's new to me. I'm going to have a go at defining success using objectives and key results, OKRs. Now, I've never done this before. In over 25 years in the industry, I've never worked in a company that's used OKRs, and I've personally never created them myself before as well. So I'm brand new to this. So whether it's chat live or you're watching this on catch up later, I'd love your feedback on these, because there's going to be people out there who watch this who've got way more experience with these than I have, who are going to be able to help me draft these and improve these. Now, to help you understand where I'm coming from, for the last 10 or so years I've been working on a management system. And at its heart are four foundations: direction, organisation, supervision and education. And I think they map pretty well with OKRs. See, the purpose of the objective is to tell us what we're trying to achieve. It gives us our outcome. It sets direction. So whenever we're working on something, we can always go back to the objective to see whether or not we're heading in the right direction. So that works pretty well. And if we look at the key results, we can collect them together. And we can say that what they do is they tell us how we'll know if we've been successful or not. They'll tell us how it's going to be measured. So they give us criteria for supervision. So for the project, I can self-supervise. And obviously the community I'm hoping to build around this will be able to chip in as well and tell us how we're doing. That's the plan anyway. So our four foundations of management. OKRs give us two of those. They give us direction and they give us supervision. And I'm good with that. They don't tell us how to organise the work, and they don't tell us what we need to learn in order to achieve the work. That gives us scope to make decisions, some freedom if you like, for lack of a better phrase. And if you like, those are more the leadership sides of delivering projects. So I'm feeling pretty good about this as an approach. Alright then. So, objectives. As I said, I'm brand new to this, so fingers crossed these objectives are going in the right direction, but feedback on these is incredibly welcome. And I think we've just got the one objective for this project, and that's to ensure that Gitflow is a viable branching model, regardless of which platform developers are using. We want to get this done by Easter 2021, which is something like the 5th of April. I think this objective tells us exactly what we're trying to do. But also, there's a lot in this objective, and I think it needs breaking down. And the first thing I want to break down is this concept of a viable branching model. Why did I pick that phrase? I didn't pick want it to be the number one branching model, or even any sort of concept around popularity. I simply want it to be viable. I want it to be there. I want it to be available when people want to go with Gitflow. And let me explain my thinking behind that. Gitflow is competing, if you like, with other branching models that provide far more instant gratification. If you take a branching model where you commit directly to master all the time, there's no feature branches, everything's committed to master, committed to trunk, committed to main, whatever you want to call it, and then you continuously publish that. You may do 4 or 5 pushes a day, for example. You're doing that sort of level of continuous delivery. I don't think Gitflow can easily compete with those branching models. But Gitflow itself, with all respects to Vincent, is nothing new. It's a rediscovery of something very similar to what we used to call unified change management, which we had around the turn of the century. It's one of these things that keeps getting rediscovered. And the reason it keeps getting rediscovered is it has some properties, mostly around the way work is isolated and work streams are isolated, that people tend towards after they've been burned by the instant gratification approach. If you've shipped a fix to production and also shipped new bugs at the same time because you didn't have the ability to stage that work and test it first, but you had to get the fix out because you had a production issue, that kind of thing. So for me, Gitflow it's an alternative that people reached for. It's not likely to be the first branching model that people go for. So that's why I'm going with viable with this. So we've got some implications here. We can't just release a binary. As nice as that would be, we're going to need some supporting materials. People need to be able to read about Gitflow. We need to understand its benefits and how to take advantage of those benefits. And I think we're going to need some marketing material as well. We're going to need to raise some awareness so that people know that Gitflow is available. So when they're looking around for their second branching model, for example, somewhere in the back of their mind, something jogs their memory that says, oh yeah, we need to go and look at Gitflow. That's the idea. Now, key results for this. This is where it gets a bit more interesting. You see, as I said, I'm new to this, and I've struggled to write key results for this supporting material. Everything I've read so far says that successful key results are measurements, and they're normally measurements of how the life has been made better for the target audience, the customer or the end user. That's, the examples I've read have all been about that. But the problem is, we're an open source project. We don't have a way to measure things like adoption. Not a chance. I'm not putting analytics on the new website that we're going to build for this. Not going to happen. I've done a talk on GDPR. You'll find elsewhere on the Gambaro Digital channel. I think personal privacy is important, and I'm not about to start breaking that just for an open source project. So I don't currently have a way to figure out whether or not the supporting material works for end users. And I'm certainly not interested in playground popularity like GitHub stars and things like that. So right now I'm stuck. Freely admit it. So one for chat. Hello chat. And also one for anyone watching this on catch up afterwards. Is there anyone out there who's got more experience with key results who could help me draft this? Any ideas at all on what we could write up to say whether or not we're doing the right thing with the key results? Yeah. Switch the camera on. There we go. Aha. What do people think? Right, wrong camera. There we go, that's better. Anyone in chat got any ideas? So I'm looking to my left, your right, because that's where the chat window is on my MacBook Pro. Okay. I don't think we've really got enough people in chat for this, perhaps. So hopefully you're going to watch on catch up, and I'd love to see your comments on this because I need to learn about this. Going back to the slides. There we go. All right. Next slide. So let's go back to the objective then. Ooh. Rob's just said don't look at him. I'm wondering if there's quite a lag on the comments, or just on the. Sorry about this. I'll interrupt the thing for the moment. It's the first time I've done live streaming, and I really don't know how long the lag is from me saying something to someone in chat typing in a comment to the comment actually appearing in my software. So yeah, as we build an audience, it's going to be interesting to play with that. Back to the objective. So there's another phrase in the objective which is doing a lot of heavy lifting, and it's this phrase here: regardless of platform. And this phrase is really my motivation for doing this whole project. It's got a lot of implications. The first implication is we need to get the Gitflow extension available on all the major operating systems. That makes sense. I mean, that's why I'm trying to port it from shell scripts in the first place. But it also implies that this Gitflow extension, it shouldn't be tied to just one Git hosting provider. It shouldn't just be tied to GitHub. So what does that give us? We'll deal with the easy ones first. It gives us a key result. We want all the features available on Linux. And I'm targeting Intel AMD chips for this, hence AMD 64 in brackets. I don't have a Raspberry Pi or anything else like that, so I personally can't test this on those platforms. But hopefully Golang's good enough and stable enough on those platforms that we can cross-compile and the binaries will work. And maybe the community can help out with testing on that. Second key result. We want all these features available on macOS, on MacBook Pros. And again, I'm targeting the Intel, not the new Apple Silicon. I don't have access to Apple Silicon. I very much doubt we can actually do automatic cross-compiling for it at this time. Who knows? Maybe we can. But Macs are still important for developers. They are becoming a less important platform, but they're still pretty important. So I'm going to be targeting that. But here's the big one, and here's my real motivation personally. It's targeting people on Windows. See, the idea is Windows never went away as a development platform. And in recent years, we're starting to see it become, once again, the dominant development platform. Many people can't afford a Mac. People don't like Macs, it has to be said. And the amount of hardware you can run Linux on, and the desktop and the laptop, is getting smaller and smaller. I run Linux daily to do all my development work. It's getting harder as the years go by compared to how it used to be. So Windows is getting more and more important. Now the thing is with Windows, people using WSL and WSL2 can run Linux. That's the Windows subsystem for Linux, I think is what it stands for. So they can run the Linux binaries. But there's going to be people out there who aren't going to be running WSL or WSL2 at all. They need a Windows native binary for that. So that's one of the things we want to achieve with this project. Make sure I've got the right keyboard. Now, I mentioned about being Git hosting independent. So these features, we want them to work with every service that supports the standard Git plus SSH protocol. There are probably other protocols for pushing and pulling that are available as well, but this is the one that pretty much everyone uses. So this is the one we're going to be testing with. We can always come back and expand this at a later date. This does have a knock-on effect. The existing extension is actually known as Hubflow, and it does actually have a GitHub specific feature. Memory serves it was contributed by Nick Telford. Hello Nick, if you ever watch this. And I believe if memory serves, I've never used it, but I believe if memory serves, it allows you to actually create a pull request directly on GitHub by using, from the command line, using GitHub's API. We're going to be taking that feature away, at least for now. We'll probably come back and revisit it once the porting is done and we've got a solid platform, solid product if you like, a piece of code to expand on. But for now that one's going to be going. Now, we're not finished with that phrase and the amount of heavy lifting it's doing. There's a few, I mentioned earlier about assumptions, and this phrase is actually, there's a few assumptions in there that we need to tease out and explain in a bit more solidly, regardless of platform. You see, platform isn't just about your operating system or who you're hosting your Git repos with. There's more to it than that. IDEs. Folks who use IDEs, we need to think about those. Now, I'm not going to be writing extensions, plugins for different IDEs. I've done that in the past. In all honesty, it's a fair bit of work and it's a fair bit of maintenance to keep them up to date. And I know that I don't have the time to achieve that. So I'm not going to be doing that as well, but I want to make it easy for folks who do want to do that. So what I'm going to be doing, and this is a stretch goal, is I'm going to architect the extension so that we can actually run as a daemon in the background for an IDE to call. And we're going to make it possible to stick an API on it. So that's a stretch goal, but knowing that it exists affects our planned architecture. Excuse me. Yes, hang on a minute. There we go. Yes, people writing IDE plugins could just simply call the binary. There's nothing wrong with that if they want to go with that. But the current trend in extensions is where possible to actually, think about language servers, for example. Spin up a little daemon in the background that the extension can communicate with to do queries and get tasks done. That's the kind of thing I'm thinking of there. Okay. We need to think about the fact that there's going to be more than one version of Git out there that we're going to be interacting with. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make sure we've got some level of independence against the Git binary. It's a real problem. It's something we've got to do, which is why it's not a stretch goal. So you may not be aware of it, but different people on different platforms have different versions of Git. Operating systems update the versions of Git that they ship at different paces. And I do believe that Apple and Microsoft, I have possibly wrong memory, but they actually patch their versions of Git that they ship to developers. So they're not just using the pure upstream source, if memory serves. So that's something we've got to think about. Another important point is we don't get to decide which version of Git people are using. Some people are going to be getting it from their official operating system tools. Some people will be getting it from third-party package managers like Homebrew, like MacPorts, for example. Some people are going to be running the upstream version of Git, quite close to bleeding edge. It doesn't matter. Whichever version of Git they're using, we need to understand that, accept it, and accommodate it. And finally, we, as in the maintainers, we can't be sure we've got the same version of Git as everyone else. I'm going to be doing most of the development work on Ubuntu Linux. And that's going to be Ubuntu 20.04 because that's what my laptop's running. Somebody running Ubuntu 2010 when it comes out, for example, may get a different version of Git. Don't know. We'll find out. But because I'm running an LTS version, I have to understand and accept that some binaries on there can lag back. Ooh, okay, we just had another comment about Windows. So I'm guessing the lag's pretty bad. I'm guessing the lag's minutes, not seconds there. Right. There's one final group of people we need to think about. What about people who don't actually have Git in the first place? Some people may be using GUI tools that bundle Git inside them in some way. So they may not actually have a Git binary in their path for us to call, and they may not even know what a path is. What about those people? We need to think about those. So those people give us another stretch goal, which is, can we make this available without Git binary being available at all? Can we achieve complete independence from the Git binary? That's another stretch goal, but one we need to think about. And the reason this one interests me as well from a maintainer's point of view is one way to achieve our other goal of Git independence is to have a fallback. If we run into a version of Git that's throwing errors we're not expecting, doesn't behave as we expect, falling back to a no-Git approach might allow Gitflow to function where otherwise it would be broken. So that's an interesting idea for us to explore. FFI into libgit, Rob asks. I'm not sure what FFI is, my friend. But if you're wondering how I'm going to do no Git, we'll come on to that in a moment, because I do have something for the R&D section today to have a look at. Coming back to the objectives. The last part of the objective is this deadline, Easter 2021. Now, I'll be honest, I have no idea whether I'm going to manage that by Easter 2021. It might seem a long time away, but given I'm doing this one evening a week after work, it's not that far away. But the reason it's there is it gives us what I'm going to call a measure of appetite. How much commitment are we willing to make, we as in the maintainers, as in me at the minute, to get this done? That's the whole point. And I'm happy to spend my Monday evenings, probably with some time off for Christmas, but I'm happy to spend my Monday evenings working on this all the way through to Easter 2021. Because that's about 30 weeks, so 30 sessions. Like I say, minus Christmas, minus any surprises. And those 30 sessions, that's only, 45 to 90 hours of time. So, and that's based on streaming for anywhere between 1.5 and 3 hours per week. and I'm assuming that I'll be taking some stuff away to play about with in between the sessions, because there's going to be some stuff that's people aren't going to want to see because it's just going to be too mind-numbingly boring, and so there will be some stuff I'll take away. But we're 90 hours. What's that? That's less than 3 working weeks, for example. Let's give you an idea of office time. Now, the reason I've picked this Easter deadline, these 30 weeks, is because it feels about right. I don't know. We're going to find out. Okay. So, just before I get into the initial plan, let me change camera. Let me decide camera. I've got too many choices. Let's go full screen on me. Hello. Right. I've always got to remember to sit up with this camera. It's perched above my monitor, and I'm still getting used to the viewing angle for you all. So, what do you think? Does this sound like a good plan? Well, sorry, a good set of objectives. You haven't heard the plan yet. Does it sound like a good set of objectives to be trying to achieve? Have I missed anything? How many viewers have we got? We've got the 2 viewers, one of whom I imagine is still Rob. And if you're watching on catch up, please do leave comments about the objective and the key results, what you think of them. If you think there's anything I've missed, if you think there's anything we can improve on. I will be reading the comments week to week and trying to incorporate them in the next live stream. Alright, so I'm just waiting to see if the comments catch up or not. It's really, I tell you, it's really hard to tell because it looks like the lag's quite significant. I think that's something I'm going to have to look at for next week. Alright. So, I'm going to move on then, and we're going to talk about the plan. Because I've been doing some prep before the live stream. So you didn't see me scrambling around on the live stream trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do. Scroll this up. There we go. So the point of the plan is, how am I going to meet the key results? The plan's going to change a lot over the next 30 weeks. I'm absolutely sure of that. But we need a starting point. And so if we group the key results together that we're trying to achieve, 100% of features, it occurs to me that the best way to do this is to leverage what we've already got. We've already got these shell scripts that form the existing extension. And what we're looking to do is take that same functionality and re-implement it in Go. So why not start with an initial extension that's just a skeleton, and all it does is actually calls through to the shell scripts to do the work. Now that's not going to work for folks on Windows, but it'll work on macOS and it'll work on Linux for now. And then once we've got this skeleton in place, week by week we can chip away at all the different commands that need implementing and all the different switches and options that need supporting, and gradually phase out the shell scripts. And then when we've finished, we'll end up with all of the features working in Golang. That's my initial plan. A comment from Rob about the objectives. Objectives seem fine. Actually, in theory, I can put these on the screen. Let me try this. How do I do that? I'm supposed to be able to put comments on the screen. I don't know how to do that. I'm going to have to go away and try that for next time. There we go. There we go. So, let's change camera. There we go. Hey, Rob. So that's what Rob said about the objectives. He's intrigued to see how they translate in actual things to do. So hopefully our initial skeleton here helps with that. that's the plan I'm going to do. It gives me something I can get started with, and I can chip away at an incremental delivery. That's the phrase I'm looking for. Iteration. Once we've got the skeleton built, we can iterate each release, adding in new features bit by bit until they're done. Now, multi-platform support, or multi-OS support anyway. That's what Go's for. That's the whole point of using Go. It's not a write once, run everywhere language. It's not pretending, it's not trying to do that old Java promise that Java never really achieved. It gives us the tools, though, to support each platform as we need. And I've also got a tool called Scriptish, a Golang library I wrote, which we'll talk about more soon, probably next week or the week after, to help with all of this as well. This is going to be hosted on GitHub, so I'm going to be, as part of the project, I'm going to be setting up some GitHub actions to do the builds and also publish tagged releases as well, so that people can just go and download the binaries. I haven't actually used GitHub for releases before, so that's something new for me. Yeah, so that was some learning to be done there. Excuse me. Right, the independence from Git. So this is our third group of key results, if you like. First of all, we're going to be, this architecture is going to be layered. And at one layer, we're going to be identifying the Git actions we need. And we're going to be wrapping those in a CQRS-like API. And these are going to be our Git backends. And then we're going to sit something on top of that. We're going to have a thin layer that can call into multiple backends to do something. So if, for example, our shell scripts are going to probably be our first backend, and they'll be our fallback. And then as we build other backends up around the Git binary, around the no Git approach, there'll be layers as well that will sit in there and will act as a fallback. And all this will be handled away from the business logic of the code. So the code doesn't know whether it's talking to real Git or not. It doesn't need to, the application itself, the application logic doesn't need to know. It's all going to be hidden away. And in order to achieve no Git, I'm going to look at a library called Git-Go, which seems to be quite popular for implementing Git features without having a Git binary. That's going to form the R&D we're going to do today. So, chat. How many have we got? We've still got 2 people. At least I'm not losing viewers. That's a good start. I'm not losing viewers first live stream. I can take that. But also anyone watching on catch up. What have I missed? Are there any actions for part of the initial plan? Anything high level I should be doing that you're expecting to see, but hasn't actually made it into these slides? Come and tell me. Please do leave a comment afterwards. I will read them before the next live stream, and I'll try and incorporate them or otherwise address them however I can for the next live stream. I'm just looking at the chat window to see if there's anything coming from our current viewers. Once again, I fear the lag is too bad for that. I'm going to see if there's anything I can do to reduce the lag for chat for next week. I think that's going to be important. Right then. Now, when you originally saw plan, some of you may have been thinking of written requirements in the form of epics and stories. And those absolutely need doing. There's no two ways about that. But they're not part of my plan. For a start, I absolutely believe that a product, and I'm treating Gitflow extension as a product or a service. It's not a throwaway microsite for a design agency. This is something that's meant to last years. I mean, the existing code's lasted 8 years. We want this to last another 8 to 10 years, something like that. Hopefully, it will outlast me being the maintainer and be maintained by a wider community. So it needs written requirements so that everybody knows what it's supposed to do. Now, these issues, these epics, if you like, these epics and stories, I'm going to try using GitHub project boards for these. I haven't done this before. This is something that's new for me. But I'm going to have a go at using those to track the progress and see how we do. But what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to sit here and set up those boards tonight. And I'm not going to put those epics and stories in tonight, because that will lose me the viewers I've already got. I'm sure nobody wants to see me sat down writing epics, writing stories. That's an activity really for me to go away and make a start on before the next live stream. We'll see how long it takes. I'm not guaranteeing to get them all done before the next live stream. Then maybe it'll go quite well. Maybe as I write them out, I'll realise that there's so much to be done. I've got to break them down bit by bit, week by week. We'll see. I would like to get them all done. Hang on, let's go back to me. And let's remove that. There we go. Right. Okay. So I would like to get them all done, because once we've got to the story level, the story level tells us how good we are for our timings. I'm a great believer that you can't cheat the math. So if we've got 60 tickets, for example, 60 stories to deliver, and we've got 28 sessions or 29 sessions left by the time we're getting into working on those tickets, that means we've got to knock off 2 a week. And that we may quickly find that that's too much of a tall order, for example. We'll see how we go. But this is why I'm keen to get the epics and the stories done, so that we can start doing the math and seeing what the project looks like. Many projects I've worked on have failed to do this pretty basic, I would argue, analysis. And as a result, I've then gone over time, over budget, or missed their opportunity, because there was more work to do than could be done in the time available. All right. One moment. Ah, that's better. You don't want to hear me coughing. Right. So I think it's time to do some R&D. So let me just switch over. So what you're looking at here is my Linux laptop. I'll stick me on as well, try and give it a bit more of a human face. And tonight, let me just move the microphone back a bit so I can approach the keyboard a bit more. Right. So tonight, what I want to have a look at is the Golang library for Git. Where has it been moved to? So this one's been archived, even though it's the top. It's moved to its own organization. Here we go. Right. Excuse me. So we've got these metrics at the top here. And honestly, I don't care about those. What I do care about, obviously I care about what it can do or what it can't do. And I care... sorry, my drink's a bit too bubbly, I think, tonight. But I also care about how well it does it. So we're going to be looking for its features. And there will be some sort of README. Okay. So what have we got here? So first of all, the opening paragraph is pretty encouraging for me. They're basically trying to re-implement Git in pure Go, and not just. And you may not be aware, but Git's actually got 2 types of CLI commands. It's got the high level, which is known as porcelain, which is end users are meant to use. So when you do git push, git fetch, etc., you're using the porcelain commands. But there's also a more machine readable lower level, which we tend not to touch. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the last time I've ever used any of this, which is meant to be for machines to use. It's meant to help you integrate with other computer for software to integrate Git into it. So the fact that they mention both there is encouraging to me. They talk about idiomatic Go. That's good to a point. I care more about, idiomatic is handy for people because it helps them pick up a project easier. But at the same time, we don't want it to be dogmatic, and we don't want to rule out techniques that will help us write code that's more robust and easier to maintain. It's got storage backends. That's interesting. It's used by Keybase. Who bought Keybase recently? I'm trying to remember. Someone bought Keybase recently. So it's used by a few people, not huge names, I would argue. But at least there's people out there using it in anger, so that's encouraging. They're looking for full compatibility. This paragraph here, so that's good. And there's some compatibility documentation as well. So Rob's just asked, I'm gonna let's pop this up here. Rob's just asked, Keybase is still a thing? Yeah, apparently so. I don't know about you. I signed up for it a long time ago. If I've ever used it in anger, I've forgotten about having used it in anger. So yeah, I don't know. Most of the time, the only time I remember I've still got a Keybase account is when it tells me someone who follows me on Twitter and who I follow has signed up to Keybase, because then it encourages you to link on Keybase as well. That's about my only interaction with Keybase that springs to mind. Right, we're going to look at the compatibility documentation in a moment. So I'm going to open that in a new tab. So it's got some examples. The examples have caveats. That's unfortunate. So we need to not read too much into the. Not read too much into them. So Rob's just agreeing that his Keybase interactions is about the same as mine. Right. So basic example. So they've got these things called plain clone. So that's interesting. APIs that take true and false. That can be a bit of a maintenance problem. It's much nicer to, in my experience anyway, it's much nicer to either use constants that have names for them, so it's more obvious what they are, even if they map onto true or false, or to replace, because true and false is normally driving an if statement somewhere, replace the if statement with a function, a lambda function that gets called to. But that's not really the way people write Go. So I think if anyone watches this who's been using Go for a long time, they may not necessarily agree with some of the techniques I choose, which is good. We want diverse opinions. So here's another example. It's showing us that it produces outputs that look like Git. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of outputs and whether or not. See, the existing shell scripts, the output from Git is normally what's shown on the screen, and then we add some commentary on top of that. I hadn't thought of what the outputs need to look like. So I'm not aiming for 100% compatibility at the output level. Maybe I should be. That's something I need to go away and think about. That's an interesting point. Right. So we've got this compatibility to look at. And I'm going to look at that. I'm assuming the everything on the laptop's easy to read and follow. I apologize if the screen blurs a bit while I scroll. So I've not made a list of what capabilities we need. What I'm going through here is more looking for what's missing more than anything. Right. So, okay. Here we go. Merging's not supported. That could be a major problem. Rob's just confirmed that. Okay, so that means the lag time is about a minute and a half on comments. That's worth knowing. So Rob's just confirmed that the laptop's readable on his iPad, which is good. I will at some point do a live stream just on the laptop setup, because this is a setup I've built specifically for live streaming. When I'm actually working on code during the day, it does look a bit different. But that's a topic for another time. But if people want to see more about my live stream setup, leave a comment below. Anyway, back to the compatibility. Stash, I don't think we need. Merge tool, I can't remember the last time I used that, and I don't think we use it in the Gitflow extension. Could be wrong, we need to check on that. But the lack of merge is something I'm really going to have to go away and think about. Mergers are a thing. So not being able to merge could be a big problem. So we've got two options there, or two that immediately spring to mind to me. The first option is what's missing. Can we complete the work? This may be work in progress that we may be able to contribute to. That's a rabbit hole we need to be careful of, but that's one option. The other option is maybe we need to find a different tool. Maybe GoGit, yeah, that's what it's called. Maybe GoGit is the wrong tool for this. We'll have to see. We can't apply patches, but we can diff them. Interesting. There's no email support, but that's okay. There's no bisect, there's no blame, there's no gret. Well, sorry, there is blame, there's gret, but there's no bisect. At the moment, I don't think we have a feature that uses git bisect. I think we encourage people to use git bisect by themselves. So I think we're okay there. But again, I'm going to have to go away and check. We don't care about subversion support. I don't even know what fast import means. Administration. There's no garbage collection. There's no consistency checking. The other features I don't think we need. Although being able to repack might be nice. It's a relatively new feature as Git goes anyway. Don't care about the server admin. Notes, replace and work tree, I don't think we need. Signed commits. At the minute, we don't support signed commits. No one's ever asked me for it that I've noticed. Apologies if you have asked me and it's completely gone over my head. So I think we're okay there. There's a number of plumbing commands implemented. Okay. So merge base, I believe, works out where you've got to go from to resolve two commits. Could be wrong. Not as many ticks as I'd like. I'm not sure what the difference is between dumb and smart HTTPS support. So I don't know really what that's saying. Supports get ignored, doesn't support get attributes. That's okay, because we're just looking at managing branches really. So we're looking at fetch, push, merges, creating and destroying branches. So merge is the big thing that's missing. So what else is out there? What else is out there? So I'm just having a bit of a scroll down. And these results are very quickly disappearing into irrelevance. So let's have a look. Aha! So this would be... So Rob made a comment a lot earlier about talking to libgit. And I wonder whether this might actually help us achieve that. Let's have a look. So these are Go bindings for libgit 2. So we need to look at libgit 2 as well. I have not used it. Now the problem with that, with using a C library, it might give us more features, but the problem we've got is our portability then becomes a problem. Is libgit 2 available easily for us to use on all three platforms? Or to put it another way, how do I create a Windows binary, a static binary for Go, using libgit 2? Can I even do that? Because if I can't, I'm not sure this is an option. Let's have a look. So Rob's made a comment that adopting the C or C++ libraries is going to make the cross-compiling a pain. Which I absolutely agree with. I really am worried that will be the case. And if it is the case, I think no-git may have to be dropped as a feature. Or at least what we may have to do is just have it there as a partial fallback, and just use the features that are available in GoGit, sorry, and then we can fill in the fallback as time goes on. So we're gonna have to look at libgit 2. So things like this worry me a bit. These are the little things I'm looking for. It's saying you've got to import the right version of Git2Go in order to actually be able to link against the library. There's this phrase here about guarantees against the stability of libgit2's API. Now the last thing we want, yes we want, well I want a no-git option, but if the maintenance is too expensive because the API is unstable that we're implementing against, then it's not worth it, because we won't be able to maintain the code to a reasonable standard. And we'll end up putting a lot of work into building a piece of code and shipping a piece of code that rots very quickly. So I'm keen to avoid rot. So right now, I am not feeling great about this as an option. So let's go and look at libgit 2. Okay, let me just share this comment from Rob. So Rob was pointing out that in the README I was highlighting on Git2Go, one moment, Rob. I'll just address this point first before I get to your next point. about only supporting static linking against libgit2. So static linking means the library would actually be compiled into the binary. But what's not clear is whether that's just any version release of Git2Go, or whether that's just the unstable master. It might be while you're building against master, the master branch of Git2Go, that what you end up with is static linking. But when you compile against the stable version, one of these versions here, for example, like 1.0 or v30 of Git2Go, it might be at that point that it still does dynamic linking. Yep. So Rob said that it looks like the master of Git2Go is tracking libgit2 too closely, and I agree. It does look. It looks like it's more work. Like trying to adopt the master is actually going to generate work. So we're definitely not going to do that. But what we need to do, in my opinion, is you actually need to understand whether libgit2 is an option. Do they have releases? They have releases. So I'm ignoring their features for the minute, because if we can't compile, if it's not available on all the platforms we care about, it's irrelevant. What it does is irrelevant. So do they release? No, they just release source code. Right. They're not releasing binaries. Can we get binaries from somewhere else? I don't like the fact we've got to look somewhere else for binaries. Ba-ba-bum. Da-da-da-da-da. So a good thing about libgit2, my eye was drawn to this here, is that it's in use by some big names. Certainly bigger names than GoGit. So GitKraken is quite a popular GUI. And obviously GitHub, GitLab are very popular Git hosting. I've never used Azure DevOps. I can't make a comment because I don't have the experience. Licensing is also important. It's GPL2, so that's GNU General Public License version 2. But they've also added a linking exception, which is some projects do, which allows us to take their unmodified code and actually bundle it with ours, which is really awesome. Ba-ba-bum. Okay, compilers. So Rob's asking, he's saying that binaries for libgit2 would be handy. Absolutely agree. And he's wondering if it can be cross-compiled. So apologies for the lag with the comments. But what we're looking at here is the build instructions to see which platforms it can be built for. Because worst case, we can, if it's depending on what their release cadence is we can build our own. We can build our own libraries and then use those to link against. It's a bit more work, but as long as it's something we can easily automate, not the end of the world. So it gives us Linux, BSDs and macOS. macOS is the one I'm after. FreeBSD would be nice, but I don't really know anyone who uses it. If you're watching this on Catch Up and you're a FreeBSD user, please do say hello. And it says under Windows, this is nice, It uses the native Windows API for threading. So it can be compiled for Windows. But there's no cross-compile instructions so far. Right. Okay. So that's one downside, is there's no off-the-shelf cross-compile instructions. So what I want to do, right, new tab for this. So the other thing you're seeing at the minute is how my collection of tabs is rapidly growing as I do research. So has anyone cross-compiled it? Because if no one has, it's not something I'm going to be getting into myself. So that's Git to Go being cross-compiled. It's not what I'm after. Right then, let's have a look. Excuse me, right. Cross-compile, cross-compile. Cross-compile, come on. Has Google sent us to somewhere? I mean, obviously we don't know if these docs are up to date or not. I mean, if they're relying on things like full-blown Visual Studio for compiling, I don't have those tools on Windows, so that's not a goer for me. That exceeds my appetite for the project, as if you were. Cross-compile, that's Xcode. Right, so it looks like right then. It looks like their idea of cross-compile is compiling for 32-bit or 64-bit Windows. Huh. Okay. So based on this, maybe I'm being hasty, but it looks unlikely that I can cross-compile libgit 2. So can I get binaries from anywhere that I can trust? So we've got this. Let's have a quick look at this. So this is part of the libgit 2 organization on GitHub, sorry. But if they're just for the Windows CLR, yeah, that's no good. Ooh, hang on. Let's not be too hasty here. I guess thanks to .NET Code, they've been looking at, because .NET Code's trying to be more portable, I guess they've been actually having to make their binaries available. So this is promising. It says the Linux support is experimental, but that I'm not worried about. That we can compile ourselves if we have to. What we don't want to have to do is build macOS and Windows binaries. So the question is can I get these binaries, and do the binaries have like whatever Git to Go needs in order to link against them? So there's no releases published. So they're publishing this. Where are they publishing this? Right, so there's a NuGet. Let's have a look. I'm not a Windows developer, so NuGet is something I'm not very familiar with. Right. That is a big red flag. Yep. Okay. So Rob's talking about Git to go. It looks promising. Let me add this. Sorry, that takes it away. Not sure why switching camera takes that away. I'm going to see what we can do about that. Hang on. Right. So Rob feels like Git to go looks promising as an API, which is good. But the problem is with libgit is the fact that we need libgit 2. That's the problem we're looking at here, unless I'm missing something. Let's put my camera back on. There we go. Hello. So coming back to these binaries, this I'm worried about here. It's last updated 5 months ago, whereas libgit 2 itself, let's look at their releases. So 4th of June, so June, July, August, 3 months ago now. And then April, May, June, July, August, 4 months ago. So the binaries that have been compiled here, we can't go and get them and reuse them because they're going to be far too old. They're going to be far too old for us. And also I don't want to rely on a source of binaries that are lagging this badly behind. It doesn't mean the project's abandoned. It might simply be because they've gone from version 0.2 of libgit 2 through to version 1.0. It may be that the API's changed so much in between those releases that the folks who are using these binaries, creating these binaries that we're looking at, these folks over here, it may be that they're actually trying to make their code updated for the latest libgit 2. I don't know. I can't assume that it's abandoned. What I can do though is look at its commits. 5th of April. Right. Yeah. Too long ago for me. That's too long ago. So we can't use these folks. How are we doing for time? We've been going just over an hour and a quarter at the minute. So we'll carry on with the R&D. Is there anywhere else I can get to binaries from? Because if someone I can trust is producing the binaries, and it looks like the binaries are going to be a regular source, then that's not too bad. But if we look at Ubuntu, for example, see, Ubuntu's massively out of date. 0.28, massively out of date. So I can't even start working against the Linux binaries and add more in at a later date. So libgit 2 is looking like. Oh, I'm sorry, I've left this comment up all this time. I've left it up for so long. Right, okay, yeah, sorry about that. It's because the screen I'm looking at is my laptop, but the comment where I can see what you're seeing is up on the streaming machine next to me. Sorry about that. Right, so libgit 2 at the minute, either we invest time to actually produce our own binaries that we can link against, but I'm not a Windows developer, so I am very nervous. And I'm not even sure I've got the tools needed for it. So I'm very nervous that we would end up failing on that score, or spending weeks on it for no success. macOS, I've got all the development tools for macOS, but I don't use them regularly. So right now, this feels like libgit 2 feels like the wrong approach. which is a pain because in terms of features, it's probably awesome. Da 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 da. So a wiki. There doesn't seem to be a wiki. There's no wiki. So da 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 da. Let me just share this comment from Rob. I can't argue against that at all. Yeah, the no-git version remains the stretch goal, is Rob's comment. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's something we've got to make space for. And then we either go with something like go git and accept it can't do everything. Or maybe by then it should be, maybe by then we'll have binaries for libgit2 that we can use and be able to do static linking. Or maybe we'll find we've got some time left over and we can have a go at it. But right now it's not looking very, very promising. Are there any other options out there though? Are there any other options? Da, 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 da. I'm just having a look through. Well, I do. Oh, we have another viewer as well. We're up to 3 viewers now. Hello. Viewers who are not called Rob, please do say hello in chat. Love to know who you are and whereabouts in the world you're watching us from. And welcome to our first live stream. Da, da, da. Right. Okay, so we're starting to get into some. So even though we're looking for a Golang Git library, we're starting to get, by page 3, Google's starting to give us Java solutions instead. But the Java and the JVM isn't something I'm looking to use in this project. Ooh, interesting story, amusing aside. It's got nothing to do with this whatsoever, just talking about Java. I've had Java on my MacBook Pro for forever. But the software, but gradually less and less software has used it. And so a couple of weeks ago, or last week, I got another update for Java. It checks for updates in the background. It tells you there's a new update. And this time, very interestingly, the installer said, you don't seem to have used Java for a few months. Would you like to uninstall it instead? And I actually think Oracle deserve full props for that. How many people build an uninstaller into their installer and then go, you're not being, you know, our software's not being used on your machine. Why don't we tidy it up for you instead? I think that's brilliant, and I think well done Oracle on that. But it really caught me by surprise. I can't remember the last time I saw anyone do that. So that's just a little aside. Back to my research. Okay. So, yeah, I don't think it's necessary to ooh, this might be handy. Let's have a look at this. So we're not on GitHub, we're on a mirror of it. But someone on this mirror is showing this ticket here about migrating Go Git versions. And what I'm interested in is how much work it is. "100 files changed, 933 adds, 771 deletions." So that makes it sound like it's a fair swap. We can see here how the API is versioned. I think that's a good thing. I'm all for versioned APIs. I have a talk up on YouTube called Multivariants, and it focuses on how to do it with PHP. But the underlying principles are really good and worth embracing for pretty much any language. Recommend you find that on our YouTube channel and go have a look at it. But looking back to this, what are we looking at in here? So that's the module stuff. It's going to be fun playing with Go modules again. I haven't used it for a few months, and it'd be interesting to see whether it's improved or not. So yeah, mostly imports. That's okay. Well, it's a pain in the arse to do it once. Once it's done, it's done. This is interesting. That suggests the API has got some... it's not a pure Go API in the sense that we're used to, so that's going to need some looking at. Again, import changes, import changes, import changes. All right. So this is, for me, this is an important part of R&D, is having a look at this, having a look at people using the libraries that I'm interested in, and seeing what success or what pain they go through. So I don't think there's any need to go through any more of that. What I'm interested in with GoGit, because I think what I'm going to end up doing, so Rob's made a comment. Hang on. He's surprised that the modules directory has been committed to the project. I've just closed the tab, haven't I? Nope. Let me go forward again. Are we looking at... Let's look at the file name up here. This may be the go.mod file. GoSum, yeah. So this is a bit like package.lock in JavaScript and things like that. It's a list of the checksums for the packages that have been installed. So that's not a surprise for me to see that committed. I'm pretty sure I commit that to my own projects. In fact, I don't have to guess. We can have a look. Let's have a look at Scriptish. E, F, G for Go. A lot of Fs. Yeah, so I commit the same files in my own projects. So I'm going to GoSum, for example, here. Because it's not a diff, it's a bit more readable. You can see here it's got the hashes of each of the libraries that the project should be built against, so they go and grab the exact version. So I can understand that. Now, what I want to do with GoGit is I want to have a look at their issues, their open issues. I don't care about the number. Open source projects that are not maintained as part of someone's job, issues are often way down the list of things for people to see. And if you've got a lot of repositories, GitHub's notification system is poor. Oops, sorry, another question from Rob. Rob's asking, do I commit the modules directory? Let's go back. Well, as the question's been asked, I don't think I've got a modules directory. One moment. Right. Yep, CD, one moment. I have got a copy here. So if I do an ls, do I have a modules folder? I don't have a modules folder. However Go is managing the modules, it's not created a modules folder here. Let me just double check. Look for hidden folders. No, I don't have a modules folder. So there's maybe something I've got to do with how I'm using Go modules. Maybe there's some setup needs doing to be to make things work better than they are. So that's something to look at. So I agree with Rob, it's a tangent, but it's always a good idea, I think, to try and answer questions as quickly as possible when they come up, because they may... Go's not my main programming language. If you look through Scriptish, I can do quite a bit of heavy lifting in Go, as long as I'm working in it regularly. It's definitely, I'd say it's definitely my third or fourth language, not one of my top 2 languages. So when someone like Rob, who's been programming it recently for his Flickr API app, by the way, Rob, you should put a link to that in the comments, and then I can share it with everybody. People are going to have fresher experience than me. So by listening to their questions and answering them, I can learn from it. So, right. So back to the slides. Not the slides, my laptop. Get the camera back up. There we go. Right. So what I'm doing here at this stage of the R&D is I'm trying to get a feel for how the project looks. And the idea here is to be generous. It's not unusual for issues to be misunderstood, both by the reporter and by the project themselves. But I'm just trying to get a feel for things. So this one's interesting. Git clone gives error with SSH agent, for example. Now, you'll have seen with my terminal when I logged in, scroll back up to the top of the terminal, I'm using an SSH agent for my SSH keys, so I don't have to type them in often. And because I'm on Linux, some desktops I believe will start an SSH agent in the background for you. I manage it myself, so I'm not up to speed with all of that. So if someone's trying to... So the point I'm trying to make is SSH agents are a common and normal way of using Git and SSH together. So if people are running into problems with that, that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, because... The last thing we want to do is adopt a no-git solution that generates tickets rather than prevents tickets. That's no good to us. So no one else has looked at this. He's edited it himself. So he's getting an SSH handshake fail. It looks like his SSH environment may not have been correct, so that may be user error, but it's the kind of thing we could get, where we could start getting tickets that aren't Gitflow related, but are related to the backends we're using. So someone here. Okay. This is important. the Git remote API. Now, depending on what they mean by that, one of the things we do is we actually can create and destroy branches remotely. And if that falls under the Git, if it falls under the Git remote API that this user's complaining about and reporting a problem with, or reporting uncertainty with, that could catch us out as well. So the vibe I'm getting here, we already know Git merge is missing from GoGit, but the vibe I'm getting here is if we adopt GoGit, there may be more surprises down the road. There may be things we want to do that we're going to find don't work when we do it, when we code it up. That's what we might find. That could be a problem. Sorry. Problems with Git modules. Okay. So people who use Git submodules may run into problems. May. Hard to say. So let's look at the closed issues. So we can see here, one of the things I'm looking for here that I like, is we can see issues are getting closed. They're not just, issues aren't just being opened and left lying around. No dereferences. Yeah. Not feeling good about that. But without digging into the detail, it's hard to say. So we can see here that issues have only been closed in the last few months. So it's, and there was in their README, there was a message about how they've had to move organization because the organization the project was part of wasn't responding. Was it this one, or was that Git to Go? One moment. Let me make sure I'm actually talking about the right project first. Yes. So this is, so they're reestablishing the project at the minute. So that's one of the reasons things are a bit slow. And something I missed first time round is the fact that a new company is actually backing it. So what's Git site? Don't know. Let me have a quick look at this. No, I did not mean BitSite. So whoever or whatever Git site are they this? Derive insights from open source repositories and their contributors. There's no scrolling. I'll come back to that comment in a moment, Rob. Right. So this is interesting to me. So the new company that's backing GoGit are looking to mine Git repositories for recruiters, by the looks of it. So features we need to actually do development, like merge, etc., there's a risk that that's going to be a long way down their priority list, and they may never get to it. So that's making me hesitant there. I can't be confident that come Easter next year GoGit will have moved forward sufficiently for it to have been worth us integrating into the project. I can't be confident. It might be, but I can't be confident on that. The vibe I'm getting from this is it's going to be focusing more on the analytics side, and if they add the other features, we'll be lucky more than anything. Right, so I had another question from Rob. When was the commit that added that update to GoGit? Now the problem is I don't know which update you're on about, Rob, I'm afraid, so I'm not sure how to answer that question. Yeah. So you'll need to let me know which update you're asking about, and then I'll be able to answer that. And now we've got to wait for the lag, of course, with this. Right, I'm just waiting to see if wait for the lag. The new ownership, right. So the problem with answering that question is I don't know. We can see here that the license was updated this repository's got coding that's going back years, but the issues only go back months to April. So I don't know how to answer that. I really don't, because it looks like they've re-imported the code that they were working on beforehand. They've not started from scratch. Okay, so Rob's got a conclusion to share. Let me just move this. So Rob's saying it's clear that GoGit's a non-starter. Yeah, he's absolutely right. Implementing Git in Go is a very big project. And Git is a fast-moving project. That's interesting. I don't actually pay much attention to upstream Git, I'll be honest, because I find the best way to use Git and avoid getting into trouble is to just do the basics. I've rarely needed to go beyond that. So I actually don't have a feel for how fast upstream moves. That's probably something I need to get better at. Right. So Rob suggested we just have a quick look at the README to see when it was. Let's look at its history. And we can do blame from there, Rob. Looks like 6 to 5 months ago. Yeah, so March, April time. But it's clear that adopting GoGit is unlikely to give us everything we want. So where does that leave us? If we go back to there for a moment. Right. I keep slouching, I'm sorry. Where does that leave us? I think the no Git approach, first of all, as Rob said, it's definitely a stretch goal. That's abundantly clear. But it's also clear that one of the reasons it's a stretch goal is because there's no easy solutions. Let me just share this. And let me move the window back down. There we go. Right, so Rob's saying the current state of the world, 6 months isn't that long. That's very true. Oh, hello, Sam. Hello. Welcome, sir. It's good to see you. Yeah. So Rob's, I absolutely agree with Rob. It's moot. Git go Git sorry. I'm sure they're great people. I'm sure they're working away on it hard as they can, but the timing doesn't work for us. Now, comment from Sam. Ah, my friend Sam. Right. So Sam's pointing out, this is one of the great things about these live streams, is being able to have contributions from people who know a lot more than I do, like Sam here. So Sam's pointing out that basics of scene improvements. Git switch, git restore, new commands that simplify git branch and git checkout, for example. I haven't used those yet, so I'm going to go away and have a look at those. They probably don't give us any functionality we want for the Gitflow extension, but it isn't going to hurt to go and have a look. So with that in mind, do we have that here? Let me just switch windows. Apologies, one moment. That one. Right. Let's clear that. Right. Do I have switch? I do. Cool. So this is something we can take advantage of. This command is experimental. Aha. Sorry. My eyes always look for the caps in the man pages. Right. So we can't use this yet in the Gitflow extension. Because there's a warning here that it may not be stable. So that's something to really think about. And is Git restore the same way? Let's have a look. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay. So that's important. If we were to add, let's say these commands had some features that would help us a lot, even if it just reduced the amount of code we had to maintain, for example. Adopting these could create maintenance down the road, so it may be these are something we look at later on if they give us some new features. But I'll be honest, I didn't even know they were there because I'm so used to using the old commands. That I've not gone looking for new Git commands to help me do things because I don't need it to. Okay, so Rob is saying that the experimental note is exactly what he means about fast moving. Well, your point has been proven. And thanks to Sam for pointing me in that direction as well. Okay, so we're just 10 minutes short of 2 hours. And in terms of R&D at the minute, I'm not sure what else I want to tackle tonight. Let's go back to the camera. Okay. How long are we going? 1 hour 48 minutes. 1 hour 49 minutes. That's how long we've been going. In terms of R&D, I'm not sure if there's anything else I want to do tonight. My next step is to go away and break things down into epics and stories. And as part of that, I'm going to be going through the existing shell scripts and looking at what they're doing in terms of Git and trying to organize that into an API. I might do that on the live stream next week. We'll have a look, or the week after. Yeah, I might do that in a week or two's time after we've built the command skeleton that just falls back to the shell scripts. We'll see. That's tempting. But I can't think of any other research I want to do tonight. So I'll turn this over to the to chat. Is there anything else in chat you think I should be looking at tonight at this stage? Is there anything you think I've missed or you think I've glossed over too much that I should be going back and thinking about? So I'm just waiting for the video and chat to catch up with each other. The latency seems to be about a minute or so. Ba-ba-bum. I'm definitely going to try. There is a setting in the streaming software I'm using that can reduce this latency. I didn't realize it affected it, that the latency was as high as it was, so I'm going to see what I can do about that for the next live stream. I think it's important that these live streams are interactive. I'm doing this to show people how I do things, but people who've worked with me hopefully know that I ask lots of questions and I'm trying to learn and improve all the time as well. Just because I've been doing this for 25 years does not make me an expert. And quite the opposite. I'm still trying to learn. Right. So, either the delay's too long or chat's gone quiet. So if you're watching this on catch up, please do leave comments. Let me know what else you think I should be looking at. And the other thing I'm interested in is, how would you tackle this? Is there a different approach you would take to this project? Be very interested to hear about that. I'm not for any moment claiming my approach is perfect or is the only way that this can be done. It's one that works for me and makes sense to me, but it doesn't mean it can't be improved upon, and it doesn't mean there isn't something far better way to tackle this out there. So please do leave those comments if you're watching on catch up before next week. Right, I think we are about done for tonight. We're ending with 4 viewers, which, yeah, that's a good start. It's better than 0. Way better than 0. So thank you for everyone who's watched live. Thank you for anyone who watches on catch up. Remember, if you're watching on catch up, do leave a message to say who you are and whereabouts in the world you're from. I'd love to see what kind of audience I'm starting to reach with this. The next live stream will be the same time next week, 7:15 British summer time. I don't think the clocks go back till October, if memory serves. So at the same time, same place. And what will we be doing next week? Next week we'll be going through the epics and issues. And then if there's any time left over after that, we'll start work on creating the code skeleton. Oh, chat's caught up. Hello. I apologise, I don't recognise your username. I don't know if you're someone I know or not. But welcome. Feedback much appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Da, da, da.